Security Halt podcast is proudly sponsored by Titan SARMs, Precision Wellness Group, and Pure Liberty Labs. All right, Tanner Yackley, welcome to Security Halt podcast. How's it going, brother?
Good, man. How you doing?
Doing well. I'm excited to have you on here, man. You represent a community of individuals that are just now starting to get recognition for the toll that their job has on their mental health and physical well-being, especially with everything that's going on overseas in Ukraine. We're now starting to understand the impact that being the guy stateside, watching chaos and actually being the one that's responsible for unleashing that chaos puts a toll on somebody, man.
Absolutely. No, it's really, incredible to see, where we've come with this and there's a lot of things that can tie into it. So I'm really looking forward to this discussion.
Yeah, man. Let's dive into it. Let's get to it, man. Let's just start. Let's start this off with exploring your service, your life, and dude, how did you become a remote pilot? How did that story begin?
Yeah, absolutely. So I was like any, young snot-nosed kid, skinny little 18-year-old graduating high school in rural Minnesota. Just nothing going on really. And, definitely unmotivated through school and things like that with it. And so, when I got done with it, it was like, well, go to more school or join the military. And I'm like, all right, well, I don't want to do school anymore, which is ironic now. But I was like, well, let me get into this, get in the military thing. So this was 2010. I joined up, and with that, I was looking at the different jobs, and my recruiter was like, "Hey, there's a sensor operator gig, right?" And like back then, nobody knew what this was, right? The history lesson with this, right, is that the MQ-1 Predator, the smaller one, how you can tell is it's got the tail that points down with it. And that one came on the scene in about 2000 is when they were starting to utilize that. And then the MQ-9, the bigger one up there, was brought in 2008 there. And then really, 2011, which is exactly when I went through training, is when they went, ooh, we need a ton of these, and we need them now, because it gave everybody that ability. It gave every joint terminal air controller and different things like that ability to see what's over that next ridge, what's behind that wall, right? And especially with how brutal, the 2000s were for, dealing with, the different wars there. Like it was a no-brainer to have one up. So of course everybody wanted it with it. So, and how it was portrayed to me back then was very different, right? It was just like, you're controlling a camera on a plane for me, because my job was the sensor operator side, right, of it, because you've got the pilot that controls the plane. We'd always joke and call him the bus driver, right? Because it was always, hey, what's the objective? What's your intent, right? Well, we're trying to see something. Well, that's my wheelhouse, right? I need the bus driver to put the bus in the right spot so I can see that little look angle there and collect that intel there. So, but yeah, it's always a two-person crew. Predator operated the same way. Just MQ-9 brings a lot more hate that it can rain. Especially now that they've gone up from 4 missiles to, I remember reading years ago they're playing around with 8 missiles on there. Granted, then you get trade-offs with fuel efficiency and fuel burn and everything else.
All the different munitions, all the capabilities. You're quick to understand when you're the guy on the ground what that asset brings. Like,
absolutely,
you got some Hellfires. All right, fuck yeah, let's get that on the. But what gets left out of the discussion, and what even Hollywood gets it wrong, is always portrayed as one person, one man in a Connex in a really nice chair, flying around doing everything, doing all parts of it, and we only hear about the missions that go wrong, the situations that aren't. Then if it went right, you never hear about it. And I think that for you guys, we're just now starting to really understand, because things are finally coming to light. Individuals are finally screaming and saying we deserve recognition as far as help.
Mm-hmm.
These guys aren't and gals aren't reaching out and asking for recognition as far as like Medal of Honor stories and movies and book deals. They're asking for fucking help. Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. And that's the thing, right? Because we've this is the wild thing, right? We were called the redheaded stepchild of the Air Force, right? When you have that label going into it, you're going into something. And at the time, I was freaking 19 years old flying my first combat mission. I didn't know shit about any of it. So it took a long time, right? And I always tell people this, like when you step out of that Connex box, right, or that ground control station, you don't ever realize how much it affected you. I mean, it took me 10 years to start actually realizing. And I was working for a contract company at the time doing the same thing, just swapping a flight suit for a polo. And, and then all of a sudden I woke up one day and went, huh, I think this is affecting me a hell of a lot more than I might think, with it, because like you said, you always hear about it in the news, right? You hear about them getting shot down, right? And things like that with it. And so there's always faceless, right? Within it, there's no, reality to it. And the insane part is just like you said, for one aircraft to be up, I mean, you're working with intel behind the scenes, you're working with weather, you're coordinating with whatever supporting unit you're working for, right? If I was being controlled by a JTAC, if I was being controlled by somebody else, right? Just collecting intelligence. And the wild thing is for us and how we operated, because they're like anything, right? Iraq, Afghanistan, Ukraine, it doesn't matter where the war is. There's going to be different mission sets and different tactics, right? So everybody did things a little bit differently. Even, I was stationed in Las Vegas, and we had another squadron right across the street at the time, because there was a ton of them there. And, we were like, looked at as like the different squadron, right? With it, because we all we were doing was high value stuff, right? With it, and while as great as that sounds, it was boring as shit. Because 99% of the time you're just staring and watching somebody's day to day, right? With the entire thing, and that is the piece that gets completely left out, right? Like I said at the beginning of this discussion, we get called the redheaded stepchild. People tell us it's just a video game. People tell us that, well, you get to go home every night, so what's the big deal? That is the problem. You can't put somebody into war, have them go home every night, and then go back the next day and do it again. I did that for 4 years and did 1,000 combat missions and 2,900 combat hours in those 4 years. To say that we were ground to the bone and spit out you can't get in any more of an understatement than that. So you're exactly right, because we're not sitting here going, hey, I need a Medal of Honor, I need a Bronze Star, I don't give a shit about any of that, right? The only reason I keep stuff like that over me is that other people look at it, recognize it, and say, hey, that guy's a veteran and he understands it, right? Same reason why I throw this hat on top of my head. I ain't doing it for recognition. I don't give a hoot, right, about anybody and freaking coming up and thanking me for anything I did. I do it so that somebody else out there can look at me from across the room and go, that guy gets it. And that's all it said, right? And I feel like a lot of people fall that way. While I don't go on a complete tangent on that,
please do. It's the right place for it, man. Yes. It's we got to explore. It's you have to understand too, for the audience out there. We a lot of people listening, may not have served during the time of drone warfare, or may not have even served at all. But you have to understand, like, yes, we're talking about the complex impacts of what happens when you let loose ammunition off the rails and you're watching it strike.
Mm-hmm.
But on the other hand, you're talking to a controller on the other side.
Mm-hmm.
More often than not, that is not a situation where that guy's in a safe place. You're talking to somebody and intimately they're in contact. Mm-hmm. Maybe you have the G2 that there are people that are losing their lives, and your actions, you have to be quick. And when they call for intervention, when they call for assistance, you're dealing with a complex situation, just like a fighter pilot in the air that's actually, supporting flying real time. You're dealing with the same complex situation, and you can't separate the two. How do you go home knowing that, oh shit, that ODA lost 2 guys. Hey, I was able to go there. I was able to provide that munition that ultimately killed those individuals. But fuck, man, like Americans died on that mission.
Yeah.
Guys got hurt. Nobody talks about that. Nobody talks about what happens when you're driving home from your base to your house. In your experience, talk us through that. What was it like in those early years? And I understand that it's not something that for some people, yeah, maybe it's that first time, but in those years building up, doing the job, how did you de-escalate or put that in the background, put that in the bottom of the ruck and keep moving forward?
Yeah. And that's the thing is, to be frank with it, I didn't. I coped freaking horribly like everybody else did because, and it's like grabbing an electric fence and seeing how long you can hold on. Right. That literally just hit me in the head. That's the perfect example of this, right? Is literally just grab the electric fence and see how long you can hold on. That is perfectly encapsulating of the RPA community, because at some point it's going to get its pound of flesh from you, one way or the other. There's nothing you can do. I mean, I estimate, because I don't know this number, but I estimate, and I keep it fairly broad, but somewhere between 5,000 and 10,000 deaths that I've watched through a camera. And it wasn't, because it wasn't always live, strikes. Our shit was recorded. Right? Like any good what does a football player do after the game, right? What do you see them at every game? They're sitting there staring at tablets, right? Watching that previous play. Well, guess what? We video debriefed everything. We were held to perfection in every way, in the way we briefed, in the way we trained, in the way we executed. We could never afford to miss. Ever. And the wild thing is you didn't know at any time, any, decision maker or higher authority on that could be looking at your feed from anywhere in the world, right? With it, and that's the beauty of Rover and all these other systems. We had to be able to push this stuff out. Is not only could we use it to talk to the ground party and be like, "Hey, dude, right there on your screen is what I'm looking at," right? But you could also, push it to decision makers and things like that. So it added a layer of complexity to it, because think about it. If you were, a guy on the ground kicking in doors, and things like that, and you had a body cam that somebody's chirping in your freaking ear about every damn thing you're doing. Hey, why aren't you doing that? Hey, why don't you, hey, this, and now it wasn't that extreme, but it could happen. And so you had this level of scrutiny that you're now dealing with the entire thing. And then, like you said, how do you cope with it? You don't. I drank a lot with it. And I mean, that was I think they've gotten rid of them now, but dear God, you want to talk about, fighter pilots, man, our entire career field is built off of fighter pilots' backs.
Yeah.
Because that's who they pulled in the early days. Right? You don't take a brand new career field and just throw a bunch of people that are, wet behind the ears still and chuck them into it. You want experience. You want, people with combat experience. So they took a lot of fighter pilots, ripped them out of their fast nose, pointy jet, threw them in a plane with a lawnmower strapped to its ass and said, "Hey, go fly this thing." Right? And it's like, so I dealt with the most just cynical, pissed off, angry motherfuckers. And I'm 19 just trying to figure out who the hell I even am, and sitting there trying to throw into this high pressure scenario, everything else with it. And like I said, you're just grab that fence and ride it out.
Yeah.
Because eventually, I feel whether people recognize it or not, it changes you and it takes from you a lot. With it. And so that was the biggest thing for me, was just there was no coping, right? It was go home, hit the bottle and hopefully get some sleep with it, because I've said this before, but it was especially back then, and this is no fault of anybody's, right? But it was a melting pot of bad decisions with that career field, especially in the teens, because they had us on shift work. So I was on 7-week rotations, 7 weeks for 4 years. That shit sucked. And especially after about year 3 to 3.5, my body was just giving me the finger every day.
Yeah.
You know, it was just like, nah, we're not doing this. I would start auto rotating onto other shifts because my circadian rhythm was so jacked up, with it. And we were trying everything.
This episode is brought to you by Pure Liberty Labs. Quality supplements designed to elevate your health and performance. Check out their full line of quality supplements, whether you're looking for whey protein, pre-workout, creatine, or a super greens drink. Pure Liberty Labs has you covered. Use my code SecurityHalt10 at checkout today.
With the whole thing. And the last thing we're sitting there talking about is like, hey man, how's your mental health? Right. With all this, those conversations aren't happening. It was, hey, somebody had a strike on the team. Cool. Let's go to the bar and celebrate. Kind of thing. And that was it. So while I think we've gotten better there, right? With it, and I talked to a lot of base commanders and different things like that within this community because, well, I flew with a whole lot of them now that are now getting their stars and things like that and their birds and everything else, right? So talk with a lot of them nowadays and checking on that health and see, all right, where are the lines that we can do better, right? Where are areas that we can do better, because it's just not sustainable to be able to throw it out there. And unfortunately, it's looked as such a disposable position, which is just wild because, like you alluded to, right? We were mission planning. We were sitting there and watching the missions that we planned for unfold in front of us, having to make split-second decisions. I mean, arguably at any given time, I was 60 seconds away from a missile coming off the rail. By all I needed was the right radio call to come across, and boom, I hear troops in contact. Let's get there, get eyes on, and start slinging lead, right? With it, and I think I was on day 3 in my first training at my first combat unit. I was on my 3rd training event, and I got pulled out of the seat, which was normal, because I was in training, because they got a troops in contact call. I'm like, this is my 3rd mission, and guess what? We didn't have dedicated training time. Right. We didn't have. So all these things that, the military does well, they were just like, I don't know, Lego conglomerate, like a 3-year-old, and shove this shit together and we'll see what happens. Right. And I can tell you, I don't know how the fuck we pulled it off, because we made it from the outside look great. Right. We created the tactics for the entire damn thing on the fly. Literally stealing from freaking, running pubs like the 3093 and the 3972 and all those, right? And we're sitting there just taking them in because we trained on almost every single mission set too. Because, well, now that I look back on it, they didn't know what the fuck they were doing. They were just like, I don't know, let's put them into strike coordination and reconnaissance. I'm like, what? I'm not going to be, an air commander here, probably. Like, that was never really used. Now, granted, I think there were some areas like Libya and stuff like that did become a factor. But that just shows, especially early on, how much of a let's just run them through this laundry list of mission sets and details and things like that, with no real direction, right, for the entire thing. So it made it very complicated to cope with and deal with, because they were throwing different schedules at us, like trying to do, because we were also on a 5-day on, 3-day off schedule. So you're like, oh man, you got an extra day off. Like, what's the big deal? It's like, yeah, my fucking week moves every week to the right one day. Like, and I'm in Las Vegas. You know how much it sucks when your fucking weekend is on a Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday in Las Vegas? Like, yeah, it's a city that doesn't sleep to 2.0, but shit, they're still like, I can't be like, oh man, I'm gonna go to that concert this weekend. Now I'm like, nah, my fucking Friday's Wednesday. Fuck. It's like, what the hell? So, like I said, it just all across the board. I just want to talk to the person that made all those decisions back then and go, what in the fuck were you thinking? Because it's just all over the board, right? With it, and it was just so you throw all these stigmas in there, right, and you throw everything else into it, and so it makes it exactly like you said. At this point, and all we want is recognition, right? Yeah. All we need is people to understand. Wow, were we in harm's way? Fuck no, right? Never, ever, ever. And will I ever sit there and compare myself to a snake eater or anything like that? Not in a million years, right? But what we went through was not freaking child's play.
Yeah.
And, sitting there having to watch it, because it wasn't always about what the missiles that you were employing were doing to the people. A lot of the stuff that still sticks with me 10 years later, um, is what the people were doing to each other,
Oh, yeah.
because that's the stuff you see. Because I watched that dude that I'm tasked to watch for 12 hours that day or 8 hours that day, whatever it is, and I watch him have a normal life. Right. I'm sure anybody can think of their neighbor, right? Think if you sat up and just watched your fucking neighbor all day in and day out, and then one day they're poof gone. You're going to feel some type of way because you're invested in that person. Right. Even if you don't ever talk to them, even if, and it's not saying that you're, you know, being empathetic or any wild shit like that. Right. It's just understanding, hey, there's a human being on the other side of this camera right here. And so when I watch him all of a sudden hug his wife, kiss his kids go by, walk across to a different building in a courtyard and start building a bomb, it's kind of fucking weird to,
Yeah.
and then I go home and sit down, and if I'm married with kids, the time I wasn't, but if I am, then I got to answer the question, how was work? The hell are you supposed to say about that?
Yeah.
So that's really the whole push with this, and why why I decided to kind of just say enough is enough, because I just can't sit here and watch some of these insanely talented aviators. Right. I mean, literally some of the best ever graced his career field. And now they're just shells of themselves, living in some rural isolation because they try to go to the VA. And every damn time they're like, well, you didn't deploy. So how can you have trauma? And you're like, are you serious? Like, I've watched 7,000 people die. Or how are we even having this conversation?
Yeah.
But that's still the level in the conversation that we have to have, which is unfortunate, and also shows how disjointed this discussion is, with organizations like the Department of Veterans Affairs.
Yeah. It's crazy to think that this wasn't something that was developed and understood and implemented long ago. Um, I mean, they have a hard enough time dealing with combat veterans as it is. You would think that in the rush and push to better understand the demographic, they would put this at the forefront as one of the things. I mean, we've gotten the discussion of moral injury to be prominent, or at least start to be more prominent within the VA. Like,
Mm-hmm.
there's been enough advocacy, there's been enough books, official reports, and things written out. But you're right. It shouldn't take you having to advocate to do this. It should be part of the system. It should have been developed way before today in your current initiative. But this is where
Absolutely.
we're at, man. And this is the sad part. And but I wanna veer off and start diving into this part of it,
Mm-hmm.
the advocacy part. When was enough? When did you figure out that enough was enough and you had to walk away from the service?
Yeah, I mean, with that, I was struggling a lot towards the end of my time in my career. I made a handful of mistakes and things like that, and because I was a shell of myself,
Yeah.
right? I was living every day in fight or flight without realizing it, because again, we sat through that entire career field with thinking that what we didn't matter, because we were told it every damn day by anyone else around us, right? With it. So, you talk about that moral injury piece, you talk about that stuff, that plays into it. And there's also, another thing I'll throw out there is identity crisis,
Yeah.
with it, because that starts playing a role into this. And that's something that, I've been studying for a handful of years now with this. So, for me, I did my 4 years of combat. After that, I did the traditional route, which was, hey, go to the schoolhouse and now
Yep.
teach, right? So I ended up in the lead instructor role there, taught there, overseeing instruction for the squadron, on the enlisted side, which was great. But again, there was a couple month window where you had a 20-hour window that you could work your 8 to 10 hours in any day, right? With it, the problem is again because things like there's certain times where our ground control stations would look like offices. So I swear to God, people take this and go, oh, well, they're just in an office. Let's just rip them out of that, make them go to sleep for 8 hours, and immediately come back in and jump right back into the box. So we'd sit there and ping pong back and forth on that 20-hour window, either slowly moving to the right 2 hours every day, which when you start off on Monday at 2 in the morning and then
Oh,
end it by Friday that you're walking out of the building at 10 p.m., it's a little fucked up.
yeah.
Oh, it was that being difficult with trying to just freaking live,
Live.
right? And
Yeah.
then exactly, and then you're gonna tell me is because I was a young E5 at the time with it, and so I'm a staff sergeant in the Air Force. What does that mean? I'm going right back to the line. And that's what we called it, flying the line, right? So sitting there doing the day in day out, you don't get the cushy, hey, I gotta go to an office, maybe I'll pop into a ground control station for an hour or two, make sure I'm still good to go, and then go back to my office duties. No, you were the one that went in and hacked the mission, 6, 7, 8, 12 hours in the seat. And so you're going to tell me after doing 4 years of shift work, 3.5 years of this god awful schedule of bouncing all around all over the place, that what I have to look forward to is more of the 4 years of shift work? Like,
No, thank you.
hell no.
No, no, thank you.
Yeah. I was like, I'm out. So that was the big move for me. And then like I said, I ended up with a contract company up in North Dakota, which is where I'm at now. And that's kind of landed me there. But it took me, and I'm gonna expand upon a little bit of what you asked there with I didn't hit my breaking point and really truly understanding that, like, oh my God, like, one, I have PTSD. If you would have looked at me 6 years ago and been like, you have PTSD, I'd have been like, that's funny. Like, we can't get that. Because that's what we believe, right? With it. And so, it took me a long time to really recognize that. And it wasn't until, even a couple of years later, I think I was at like year 10 or 11 of doing this job, as a civilian then, but I was still doing some of the exact same stuff I was doing in the military. And to go, ooh, I need to do something different with this here, and then it was a lot of just trying to navigate, the VA and all these other, there's some fantastic programs and things like that out there, right? A lot of good people doing good work, but there's a lot of things that can be damaging to someone with not just PTSD, but I always throw the term around of complex PTSD, because it's actually in the World Health Organization recognizes it. The American Psychiatry Association doesn't. I don't
Yeah.
know. It gets into a whole insurance thing that I don't really care to talk about. But the issue with it is when you don't put a label on something and you just go, no, you're fine, no, you're fine. It's going to be like a toddler, that you tell, hey, you can't have that candy bar, and then you don't answer why. They're going to keep asking why.
Yeah.
Right. Similar thing here, right? If you go in and somebody walks out of that box and goes, hey, I have an issue, I've got these problems, right? Or I think I have an issue. And you go, well, you didn't deploy, so how can you have trauma? That's a freaking massive, and then
Yeah.
that spirals into the moral injury piece, into the identity crisis piece, into the CPTSD piece of it all. So it's again a process that after just years and years of frustration and just feeling like I'm just beating my head against a brick wall every time I walk into any mental health appointment or anything like that.
Yeah.
And it was a good buddy of mine that was getting med boarded for PTSD after 17 years in the community. And they had a flight doc that looked at him and looked at his record and said, well, you never left the country, so what's the issue with it? And that I snapped. I just I shot up in bed that night and I looked at my wife and I was like, I'm gonna fix this, because this is just horribly wrong.
Yeah.
That they expected so much out of us, and just this high level. But I can't even get, like, right now, right? I've been trying to get a Stellate ganglion block for my PTSD through the VA for almost 9 months.
This episode is also brought to you by Precision Wellness Group. Getting your hormones optimized shouldn't be a difficult task, and Dr. Taylor Bosley has changed the game. Head on over to precisionwellnessgroup.com, enroll, and become a patient today. Wow.
And I still can't get any fucking movement on the dang thing. I so much so that I had to pay for one out of pocket 6 months ago by myself, but then it wore off.
Yeah, no, it's a good place to interject. And
Yeah.
so it's not so Ganglion block. It's a great tool. It's a great resource.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't last forever.
Uh-uh.
It's I like to say it's the first place to go to help you get back down to a normal baseline to understand and get you out of the fight or flight response. And then hopefully you're willing to talk, you're willing to engage.
Yeah.
You should not be paying for it. Remind me after this, I got to connect you with some people
Yeah.
because as a veteran, as a service member, like, guys, please, huge shout out to Operator Relief Fund. They will get you connected to the Stella Foundation to get your Stella Ganglion block. Special Forces Foundation will do it. Tons of resources out there. Don't wait, reach out, get help. You served, you went through hell. You deserve peace of mind. You deserve to be able to feel a true baseline of zero from, being stuck in fight or flight. That's a real thing. I absolutely benefited from it. I always advocate for it. And
Absolutely.
dude, I'm so sorry you had to go pay out of pocket, man. The VA should have helped you out with that, but we're gonna connect you with some resources, man.
Oh, I appreciate that, and I will go on and echo your sentiments with everything you said there, right? Because even though this thing wore off, I mean, and I almost just said you don't understand because I'm so used to talking to people that don't understand, but you do. It's incredible when your brain is so heightened and you're just analyzing every noise, every sound, every movement around you, and then it goes quiet. And even, for me, it lasted about 2.5, 3 months. And I was completely different, and being able to just sit back and be like, oh my God, I can just sit here and not feel like I'm internally screaming.
Yeah. Well, it gives you that time and space to work on the tools so that you can develop the habits and develop the techniques to help you better manage and understand it. Because at the absolute basis of it, you're just numbing a part of your human anatomy and telling it like, hey guy, calm down. We're not in threat. We're not in danger. We're just chilling. But for a lot of veterans that are constantly in that high allostatic load, where they're performing, and especially in shift work is one of the things that makes it worse. Actually, it's been proven if shift work exacerbates your mental health issues. Full stop. That's one of the worst things you can do for sleep, for your brain health. Constantly talk about brain health and sleep, and I'm horrible at sleep right now. I'm fucking dog shit tired. But I'm telling you, if you're in this shift work, if you're working those late nights, understand that I know what you got to do to put food on the table. I get it. I understand it. But just know on the backside, you got to take care of yourself, man. You can't do it forever. You can't.
Absolutely. Well, I will say too, I think, one thing through this and through really having to learn from my own trauma, right? And learn the gaps and the areas that were missing. And that's really what rolls into my advocacy work now of trying to identify these areas across industry, VA, clinicians, it doesn't matter, and say, listen, like, I appreciate and respect what you're doing, but you're missing the mark, with it. And so, but with that, there was a point, especially when I was really struggling and I just learned about the SGB. And I was like, you know what? I was like, I had the crazy thought, right? Because of course you deal when you're sitting in that heightened fight or flight all the time. You just deal with these insane thoughts that come through your head, and you're like, what the fuck was that? Like half the time, and it's like I don't Are you kidding me? But one of those thoughts was, what if I get this block and I lose a piece of what still makes
Yeah.
me me?
Yeah.
Right. And what if it, because, I've been on the medications and things like that. And, you think of those stupid commercials they used to do with those little like popsicle faces that they put in
Yeah.
front, and it's like, oh, this is depression. And I'm like, well, that's actually pretty damn accurate. I'll say they did get that right. Right. Because, when I was sitting there and leaning heavy on trying to go the medication route and see if anything was going to help me, there was a handful that I was on that was really making me feel like that, feeling like that popsicle stick face in front of me. And so I think I had an underlying fear with the stellate ganglion block that I was going to then, oh shit, what if this mutes my fight or flight completely?
Yeah.
Right. What if I just don't even recognize threats anymore? What if I don't even, and that wasn't the case. Right. It was exactly said. It softened it. It quieted, a lot of loud noise, and it made room for when it needed to be turned on. It was turned on, but at a much lower level, and I would argue a much more reasonable level of response to fight or flight
Yep.
situations. It could be something as simple as a loud noise or whatever it is, right? And usually I lock up, and half the time it's like you're so tired from your muscles just tensing constantly to everything around you. And for me, like, I get muscle twitching because
Yep.
I've got so much pent up energy in my body that I'll lay there. And I mean, I had times, especially when it was really bad, I had times I'd come 6 inches off the mattress because I would twitch so hard in the middle of the night. You know how weird it is to wake up and be 6 inches in the fucking air? My wife's going, you're okay. Because I'm just like, what the heck is going on? With it. And so even that, it kind of started softening that more with it. But that is one thing that I've recognized recently with it. Even reflecting back on when it was working,
Yep.
that it didn't kill my fight or flight completely. Right. It just made it a hell of a lot more manageable. So I'll echo your sentiments with that.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, man. It's a great tool to get you to understand what a true zero really is. And then it's up to you to continue working and utilizing the tools that you will get. Because one thing that works really well with SGB is a lot of guys are hesitant to try any other modality. They
Mm-hmm.
get the SGB, and now they're open to talking. Now they're open to do EMDR. Now they're open to try all these separate other modalities that are proven to help, but you have to be willing to do it. That's the
Mm-hmm.
thing. Like, nobody else can make that decision for you. You have to be willing to say, I am going to get help. I feel
Absolutely.
at ease. I feel like I can breathe again. Now let's sit down in front of this provider and get this stuff out. Because whether it's talking to a licensed mental health care professional, going to an outdoor recreational retreat or program, doing art therapy, music therapy, exposure therapy, whatever it is,
Mm-hmm.
you need to be willing to do something. All that experience, all that trauma, everything, and trauma gets, it's like treated like a bad word. Like, dude,
Yeah.
you're fucking, you went to war. You went to
Oh,
fucking war. You
yep.
experienced something fucking awful. It's called trauma. You
Mm-hmm.
don't have to hold on to it.
Yep.
You have to deal with it. And you can deal with it like a fucking man. Sometimes a
Mm-hmm.
man's got to go do something like go paint or
Mm-hmm.
go work with a horse on an
Yes.
outdoor retreat program. Whatever you got to do, whatever you want to do, figure it out. Talk to somebody. Listen to people that are out there echoing and championing the idea of getting help. Because the reality is, yes, you might have to admit that you're vulnerable, that you're not Superman, but there's help. There's ways to get
Mm-hmm.
better. And now more than ever, there are tons of resources. The only way that you're going to start to feel better is by taking that bold step forward. That's a reality, man. That's a reality.
Absolutely.
You got to be willing to go do the hard work. But I promise you this, I promise you, the moment you walk in to whatever program, whatever provider, the moment you make that fucking definitive step, you're going to move, you got to be moving towards the right direction and moving towards healing. And your worst days are going to start, fading into black. You're not going to be reliving those days as much. I won't say it's perfect. I won't say it's a magic wand, but you're going to be feeling a whole lot better for a lot longer than you have been for a long time. And that's the truth. It's a journey, man. It's a
Yeah.
journey. It's not going to, it's not about perfect days. Hey, for full spoiler alert, you're still going to have shitty days, but they're
Hmm.
going to be a lot shorter, and you're going to be able to smile, and you're going to be able to put things in perspective. It's the one thing we didn't have for a long time
Yes.
is perspective. You deal with struggle for so long, you begin to be jaded and think that every day is a shitty fucking day, and it's
Hmm.
not.
No.
And I think you can admit, attest to this, Tanner, that if you reflect back to your darkest days, to the when it was really bad, you didn't always feel like there was going to be a positive light. You probably didn't think that, God, this is going to get better. But
Hmm.
now reflecting back on your journey, looking where you're at today, man, let us know, like, how is Tanner dealing with life today?
Yeah. And you hit on a lot of really good points there, right? And I'm dealing it with exactly like you said, right? I deal with it by recognizing every day isn't going to be perfect, right? Even with the recent setback for me, right? You take that SGB, and I think a lot of times, especially with the military, and I'm curious your thoughts on this, but the one thing that happens is we always feel like if you start something, you've got to end it in a certain way, right?
Yeah.
I think about all those briefs and stuff I sat through, and I wrote up these briefing boards, and stand up there talking about them and different things, and all right, this is what's going to happen. But you know what we did at the end of every brief? We talked about the contingencies. We talked about
Yeah.
when shit went wrong. We talked about, all right, when this whole plan goes freaking tits up, and we've got to now deal with.
This episode is brought to you by Titan SARMs. Head on over to titansarms.com and buy a stack today. Use my code CDenny10 to get your first stack. I recommend the Lean Stack 2. Start living your best life. Titan SARMs. No junk, no bullshit, just results.
XYZ. Here's how we're going to plan that out. And we know at least a step in the right direction. Right. Those contingency plans were never, you'd have to spend another hour, right? Talking about,
Yep.
every little piece of it. But it was at least to put in your mind to go, hey, it's going to be, okay, because at least we have a vector, at least we have a direction that we can go with this, and for me now, that's something that the Stella hasn't taken away from me. Right. It is my mindset shift because I noticed immensely just more positive outlooks on things. And even right now, right, I wouldn't say I'm in the best place at the moment, having to feel like my chest is ripping apart every day, especially going from 3 months of relief to then I woke up one morning and was like, oh crap, it's back. And it was just like, no, so it's been riding the wave up and down of that, going like, oh god, is because then the whole self-incriminating self-doubt rolls in
Yeah.
and everything else with it, and you go, am I broken, am I, is this me, all that stuff, and it's like, no, it just, you've got to find another path forward, with it, and you've got to plan for that contingency, and now that plan is in place, so now it's trying to find that step forward. And so that really rolls into, what I'm doing with Remote Warrior now, is trying to at least cut those paths for people, that they don't have to go through the god awful, just kicked around every system modality and
Yep.
everything else around that I have been in the last 7 years. I'm at least trying to write that playbook again,
Yeah.
and now do it for if people are struggling.
Yeah. Well, let's dive into that. How did
Yeah.
Remote Warrior come to be?
Yeah. Well, like I said, with it, it was the biggest thing was just I was tired of losing friends to suicide. Right. With it, I was tired of getting those calls and saying, we lost so and so. There, we lost a member of my team. And I was standing in his room where he did it 24 hours prior,
Oof.
with it, and then it got blamed on a bunch of other things that just were external factors and just didn't make sense. And then it just kept hearing it, right? And we lost an instructor pilot at the schoolhouse this spring to suicide,
Mm.
for the RPA schoolhouse for the Air Force. And it was that, coupled with my buddy having that exam, and the doc going, well, you didn't leave the country, so how can you have trauma, that I went, you know what, enough is enough. with this entire thing. And so, I've always been teaching and in different ways. I taught at the University of North Dakota for a couple of years and assistant professor there. I've been teaching in combat roles and everything else with it. So I finally sat down one night and went, well, what if I can put this all on paper and make it make sense? Right. Or at least make some thoughts make sense tied to this is really what it started with. And then it kind of blew up. So now we've got an entire website. And I'll be sure to get you, links and stuff like that for it. But we've got an entire website that has a bunch of mental health resources, right?
Nice.
And it's not going out there and saying like, hey, I'm a clinician, that like, oh, this you got to do X, Y, Z. It's just putting plain language into thoughts that are sometimes scary as shit to deal with. With the entire thing, and get people, especially what I refer to as like the remote combat warriors, being those people that sat there and just watched all this horrendous crap happen and try to understand it a little bit better. So we've got our staple fog of war guide that puts a lot of these things and maybe some of the things that are happening in their head, and it's built on my trauma. When it comes down to it, and things that I've dealt with, and thought processes and stuff like that I realized, while they were terrifying as heck at the time, they were completely a normal biological response to what I was going through. With it. And so it's trying to bring normalcy to it all there. So we've got that. We've got our Discord for anybody, Intel, Cyber, RPA, doesn't matter, right? Anybody that sat and was a decision maker in a kill chain behind a screen. We've got support for them there with it. And then we've gone all the way to even grab one here. We've got these things, right? You're like, okay, it's a Plano ammo can, right? But with this is we created our panic packs with this. And what it is, and I feel like you'll appreciate this, is all grounding tools.
Nice.
For it. So it's just a nice condensed way to put all this stuff in here. So that way when you're in one, right? Because that's what I got sick of, is just getting hammered with a panic attack. And what do? You grab onto that electric fence again, right? And ride it out and go, all right, let me wait for this to pass. And I got really sick of that. So I came up with this idea. It's different things like these little, instant ice packs that pop on your chest, pop on the back of your neck, get that cold reset for you. With different things there, all the way down to like peppermint sticks.
Nice.
With it that you can hit. So it hits. It's got 2 things per sense, right? Touch, feel, taste, all of it. All the way down to these little visual timers that you just sit there and in the moment, and half the stuff looks like kids' toys. You're like, what are we doing here, right? And it's like, but then you realize when you sit down, open this box in the middle of one, you realize, okay, now this is silly as hell, but this can work, right?
Yeah.
With this, so now it's something that I keep one beneath my bed, underneath my nightstand there. And we went as far as even creating little cue cards for it that walk you through, regardless of what, even if you built your own with nothing of what we put in them, this still works. And that was the intent behind it. And then all the way down to even like a Spotify playlist with a QR code on the back that I use music theory to build.
Nice.
So that it doesn't have like loud crescendos or things like that could be triggering during a panic attack. So that way people can scan it, throw some earbuds in their ears and be like, all right. Because in my experience, that's been the biggest thing. Right. It's not these grand gestures. It's not these, I need to call, 988. That's a perfect example of this. Right. And I'm no way discrediting this at all. Right. The work they do is incredibly important. But what do you do when you hang up the phone?
Yeah.
And this fills that gap. Right. With it. This identifies, hey, when you're still sitting there with your head between your fucking knees after that call on the floor, bawling your fucking eyes out, going, what the hell is going on? That you can reach for that box and go, we're going to be okay, kind of thing there. So it's a lot of those things. And then, like I said, I do a lot of different speaking opportunities throughout. I've talked about this with Business Insider in New York,
Nice.
and that video is approaching, I think, 400,000 on it. So we're getting there, And so a lot of it is just education and advocacy, and doing exactly like we're doing right now. It's just sitting here and talking about it and talking about why it's an issue. And while is it going to affect everybody? Hell no, right? But for the ones that do, we need recognition and we need care. Right.
Absolutely.
We don't need any of the other flashy crap, right? With it, but we need recognition and we need care. And you know, and like I said, you need 21st century healthcare for the 21st century veteran. And that's something that I think we're missing, because unfortunately we're still treating shell shock instead of, you know, other avenues are looking at what the impacts are being made too. And that's the last thing I'll say on that is I'm still, and I'm working this right now actually with the VA to get an official study done on the veteran population for my career field, because while the research Air Force Research Lab has done a lot with the active duty populations,
Hmm.
like I said before, this stuff doesn't hit until you take off the freaking flight suit.
Yeah.
So if we're not looking at the other side of this, we're kind of missing the mark, right? It's like doing therapy and then not doing any follow up, right? Or not doing, you know, not having any continuing, you know, therapies or continuing sessions, things like that, right? It's that one band-aid. All right, hey, we're good. Look, it's fine. And then 3 months later, they're in the gutter again, kind of thing.
Absolutely.
So,
Yeah, man. Yeah, it's oftentimes the most frustrating situation is trying to get VA system, the veteran administration, to actually do something to start moving. It's such a big organization, but it needs to start changing and addressing these issues.
mhm.
I mean, it's deeply rooted in future war and the entirety GWAT experience.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd be hard pressed to find any veteran that was boots on the ground taking a fight to the enemy that wasn't supported by this by an MQ-9, any sort
Yeah.
of any drone. Like it's so easy to forget. It's so easy to forget that there is a human element to it. I know I did. It's you have AWT. You know, there's pilots in there. They're coming to you. You've got fast movers. You know, there's pilots that are in there. You hear MQ-9, and it's just you immediately think of this friggin' robot, this
Mhm.
automaton that is
Mhm.
at best transformer. It's coming to fucking drop some hate.
Yeah.
There's human lives there, and early on, and even I would say that even still today, it's become a laughing a point of humor
Mhm.
to look at what these guys and gals do. Oh, you just get in a Connex and you're in a friggin' ergonomic chair,
Mhm.
whatever. Yeah, dude, 100%. They're in a Connex and they clock in and clock out and they're in Vegas.
Mhm.
But that's a human being watching destruction and chaos, just like you said. And it is time we recognize that our brothers and sisters are hurting. They're dying. They're committing suicide. They're dealing with the same stressors that our human other counterparts in other MOSs experience from fighting on the ground. Yeah, the danger element wasn't there,
Mhm.
but the impact of watching this stuff nonstop over and over there, and we're like I said, we're just now seeing it too from Ukraine,
Mhm.
from what's happening there. I think the culture's shifting. I think we're starting to understand that. Holy shit! Watching
Mhm.
kill cam over and over and over again for how many years? That's got an effect on you. That's gonna impact you. If you wouldn't let your fucking kids watch it because you know that it's impactful because it's dangerous, then have some compassion and have some fucking empathy for the people that are signing up
Absolutely.
to do it, to help save lives on the ground. Like because at the end of the day, there's a human being in that connex, there's a human being in that chair on the controls watching that and having eyes on, whether it's just watching a friggin' a high value target or watching American lives as they're fighting on the ground. It impacts them, man. And
Absolutely.
Tanner, I can't thank you enough for being here, but more importantly, I can't thank you for the mission you're on now. If people want to support you, where can they go?
Yeah, absolutely. And they can definitely check out our remotewarriorllc.com. And we are on every social media platform out there. I do a lot with LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, all those different things there. So we're always looking for, people to help support, help sponsor, right? Because things like those, we send those panic packs out. We send those to anybody that's struggling in our career field at no cost to them for it there. So we're always looking for people to help, sponsor those for a veteran in need. And also, if anyone needs something like that, right? You don't want to sit there and have to do the research, and you'd rather just get something. Just reach out. I can get you one shipped, no issue there either. So, yeah, it's that'd be the biggest way is the socials and the website.
There you go, folks. Tanner, thank you so much for being here. Everybody listening, do me a
Absolutely.
favor, just pause, go to the episode description, click those links just to support, connect with Tanner, send him out some support virtually, or just reach out and then have a discussion. Because the more we talk about it, the more we normalize it, the more we can advocate for these individuals, the faster hopefully we can get more resources and more recognition, most importantly, to what they're dealing with, because they're part of our warrior tribe. They're part of the community. And they're not asking for combat badges. They're not asking for valor awards. They're simply asking for people to understand that they're struggling too. Um, Again, brother, thank you for being here. Thank you for what you're doing. And to everybody listening, thank you for tuning in. We'll see you all next time. Till then, take care. Security Halt Podcast is proudly sponsored by Titans Arms. Head to the episode description and check out Titans Arms today.